will mark another side with a really strong identity in Portsmouth, very different from what you had away from home with Oxford the other day, but a team where you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, we're having a good challenge at the minute with a number of games we're having flipping between teams that play back threes, back fours and different styles. It's a good challenge actually, I think, for coaches but for players as well, to understand and have a awareness of how to play against different teams and styles is good. A nice challenge for us in the early part of the season, because that's how the whole season pans out, and that flexibility for us is important. I think Portsmouth had a good start, unbeaten now, and 3 clean sheets in the bounce, and I think they've recruited really well, and they're going to continue doing so before the window shuts. So I think Danny and Nicky are quite openly pleased with the squad that they've got at the moment. I think you saw at the weekend they were able to bring on Tom Lowry, Owen Dale, Ronan Curtis and Joe Piggott in around the 70th minute. So that's a fairly strong squad, the fact that they can do that. So I think they're in a really strong position. They'll be looking forward to going back at home, and we'll be doing everything we can to try and repeat last year's performance.
Yeah, exactly. And much like yourselves, as you say there, that ability to change games, to have that additional squad depth, particularly this season with the 5 subs, is massive, isn't it?
I think you're seeing it everywhere now, certainly with the temperatures as they are. To use the maximum or close to the maximum number of subs, I think, is really important. We have to see how everybody is today and how Saturday's taken its toll, because it will have done. Certainly the hottest conditions we've played in, and a real challenge. And the fact that we finished so strongly and looked as fit and aggressive as we were in the second half is really pleasing actually, because that was a tough game. I think anyone that was sat in the stand watching it thought it was tough, but pitch side it was absolutely brutal. So no, they did great, and now we've got to try and make sure we get as much freshness in the team as we can, and try to go there and deliver a really strong performance. But we can do it off the back of a good result and a decent first few games. So it creates a real challenge tomorrow, but one that we can, I think, go and attack as in the best frame of mind we can.
Yeah, what a day to have a come from behind win, something that I'm not sure it happened at all last season, certainly not very often, and to go and do it in 35 degrees is a real big tick.
It's one of many sort of performance related stats that we're trying to improve this season. That ability to come from behind. Our record when we score first is outstanding, but we haven't had enough wins certainly when we've fallen behind. So for us to be able to do that is going to be important. We're going to need that a number of times throughout the season, and staying in the game and managing moments when we do fall behind, because teams get that real momentum off the back of scoring a goal, and that's where we're going to need to be good, because we know that will happen. That was a consequence really of a first half that wasn't at the level we wanted to be at Saturday, but we certainly turned that around.
Concentration is massive in any game, but particularly a team like Portsmouth, where they're so relentless. They'll get those balls into the box, they'll be almost waiting for you to make a mistake. Keeping that up for the whole 90 minutes is huge.
Yeah, but as well as that, it's just good defending. We'll have to defend the box. They've scored 50% of their goals so far this year with their head. Lots come from set plays or second phase of set plays. They're a really strong restart team. We know they'll make us defend our box. We're going to have to be big and strong and aggressive to do that well, and consistently well throughout the game. And then the momentum of the game can really take off when you play at a place like Portsmouth and Fratton Park, because the crowd really gets going. We experienced that ourselves last year. When they got on top of the game or when they scored, there was a real noise and a real energy. So it'll be the first time we've done that this year in that kind of atmosphere, I think. So that's another good test for us to see if we can deal with that. And we've only had one home game so far, so I'm sure their supporters will be really creating a noise and an atmosphere, and we'll need to start the game well, because they'll certainly want to come out the blocks quite quickly tomorrow.
Great example really, this game, of why League One is so tough, in that I don't suppose Portsmouth would even be in the top bracket for spenders in this league this season, but you mentioned the squad they've got. Obviously the backing, the size of club, it does underline what this league's all about. Yeah,
and they've spent millions upgrading the stadium this summer, and are going through a process of doing that. You've seen them. You see with the players they've signed, they've spent well. I think they've recruited well, but they've also traded well. They sold Marcus Harness to Ipswich and brought in Colby Bishop from Accrington. It's a brilliant signing, and he's hit the ground running with goals early on in the season. So I think they've done that very well. There's no doubt, like the size of clubs we come up against, I think it's inspiring and exciting and challenging for us to try and show that we can compete on a level with these clubs that have far greater resources. I think the best sign of where we've come from and where we're trying to compete is our next 7 days. We're playing Portsmouth, Charlton Athletic and Southampton, which was all Premier League teams when I was growing up. So that's a fairly good 7 days to look forward to.
Yeah, it's a cracking week, isn't it? And your next job, once you've spoken with us, I'm sure, will be to start assessing some of the players' fitness-wise. With Harvey Nibbs after the weekend, he got subbed off partway through the second half, looked in a bit of discomfort. How's he?
I think he's okay. Yeah, he took a whack to the back at the time. I mean, funny enough, I was making a change anyway. I was going to put Jack on for Harvey. I actually thought it was Lloyd Jones on the floor for about 10 minutes. Sent Greg to go and warm up, and Greg said, like, where am I playing? And I said, well, if Lloydie don't get up, you might have to go on. And he said, that's Nibsy. I mean, that shows you what happens in 35 degrees heat when there's a little bit of emotion going on. So, sorry lads, I lost the plot for 5 minutes there. But the change was always going to be Jack for Nibsy. It just so happened that Nibsy was down at the time and took a bit of a whack. But he got up okay, and I think that's settled down nicely. So hopefully he'll be fine to go again.
Yeah, and you mentioned on Saturday that you're thinking quite seriously about changing a few things around for this game just to manage the game load and all that side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been quite open saying that I think we've got a strong squad, and I think we've seen that in recent weeks, and the biggest way to show that and to prove that is to make changes and be able to do that quite openly and quite confidently. So, you know, making changes to the starting team or in-game doesn't really frighten me. I think we can still be strong. It creates a real healthy competition from our players. But we also know last year when we played 3 league games in a week, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, it was very hard for us to score points in all of those games. And one of the reasons was we very rarely made changes from game to game. So one thing we've got to try and do this year is manipulate the squad a little bit and make sure we've always got teams out that can compete and give ourselves a chance of point scoring in as many of the 3 games as possible. Obviously winning the first one gives you a nice platform and freedom to almost go in without that huge pressure going into the next 2 games, and they're 2 tough away games. So we will make changes, and the lads that don't start the game have got to try and then come on and finish the game with the same impact the boys did at the weekend, and the ones that do start the game have got to do everything to compete. But for me, it's not about hold on to your shirt, because win, lose, draw, good, bad performances, I'll make the changes if I think they're the right ones, and I'll probably be unpopular for it. And in the end, what you realise in this job is you're only right if you win, so you carry that burden all the time, but that's just the way it is. So we'll do what we think's right. We'll use the whole squad, and I think the players understand, despite the disappointment if they're not playing, that we love them and that they've got a massive thing to contribute to the whole of the team. So we've got to show that spirit, togetherness and quality that we've got with every team we put out.
And just a quick word on Mamadou Job, who did his ankle during pre-season. Has he needed surgery on that? How is he on the road to recovery?
He's going to be a while, but his outcome from the specialist is that he doesn't need surgery, so that's a good thing. So that will hopefully speed things up a little bit. And so early on in his sort of footballing days, you don't want to be getting surgery on that. So he's out of his boot now, walking around, but it'll be a while till he's back on the grass and playing, probably a few months certainly. So we'll just see how that goes and how that settles.
Cool, that's great.
With this weather, obviously, hopefully we're coming to an end to the heat wave, but recovery after games is a key part of this. Has things changed? Have they been done differently during this weather?
No, I mean, in the end, the best thing to do is try and get out of the heat, but that's really hard, isn't it? Everyone goes home, every room in the house is boiling hot. And unless you're one of the rich ones in our team, you haven't got air conditioning in your house, so the best place to be is in your car probably. So I think that's really hard to escape it. We tried at the weekend to get some temporary aircon units, which Adcock happily donated to us for a few weeks, but it's really difficult when the door's constantly opening and you've got 20 bodies in the dressing room with such heat. It's hard to try and keep that cool. You see every team in the land using cold towels and ice baths and trying to hydrate as much as you can, but in the end the best thing to do is to try and stay out the sun, to hydrate the best you can, to try and sleep, which is not easy in these conditions. And that's why that relentlessness of the heat at the minute is the thing that takes its toll. And I think even when you look at the highlights at the weekend, some of the pitches are really struggling to hold up, and our pitches are looking good here, the amount of water we've been able to get on them. But even now it's been the driest 5 months I think on record, so it's so hard to try and keep the grass alive and to try and keep the pitches going. So it's a real challenge at the moment. All we need is some rain, and we need some real consistent rain, but I don't see that coming for a while. So you just got to try and get on with it and dig in, and a lot of that is a mentality. You know, in the first half Saturday they ran a bit harder than we did. In the second half we played with much more purpose, so you just got to find that bit within yourselves to do it, and we managed to do that, and that's the challenge now I think over the next few weeks, because we've got to a point this summer where we see 24, 25 degrees and think that's a nice day, whereas that's still really hot for us normally. So we've been spoiled probably.
Cheers. Mark, you touched on it earlier. Just how challenging a week is this going to be coming up?
It's good though, isn't it? Like I think it's a good week. I love the fact that the 3 games that we've got in the next 7 days, and let's look at the 2 league games, because that's the bread and butter really. We had a brilliant performance at Charlton last year, an excellent result at Portsmouth last year, so we know we can compete, but we also know the level we have to hit to be able to compete in those games. And we also know that their expectations internally and externally for the season, both clubs, are far higher than ours. So we go into the game confident from a decent enough start, but knowing there's loads more to come from us, and seeing if we can put in performances that give us a chance of getting some points again. But I know that it's a week to look forward to, and certainly not be frightened of. I think that's one thing we've done brilliantly over the last year in this league, so we embrace those challenges really. So we'll have to do that again this week.
Do you take both Portsmouth and Charlton as promotion challenges this season?
I think there's about 14 of them. So yeah, I think the amount of teams that would expect to be in and around the playoffs this year is huge, and maybe even a few more than last year. So yeah, it's certainly a really competitive league like that. I mean, it's not really for me to talk about promotion races. They'll all have their own expectations. We're just concerned and focused on ourselves really as we go, and seeing if we can improve, which we've got a long way to go to do that, but we've made a half decent start in the first couple of weeks.
How much confidence does this give you, the start that you've had heading into these 2 games as well?
Well, it matters what it gives the players really. Hopefully it gives them a bit. It doesn't really make a difference to me, because I think we're quite good and I believe in the players and I believe in the work that we do, but hopefully it gives them a confidence, knowing that every game's so different. You just cannot compare Oxford away to Exeter at home, completely different games, and you can roll the dice again and know that Portsmouth will look completely different to that, and Charlton completely different to that. So we have to judge every individual game on its merits as it is, go into the next one, which is tomorrow night, and be as competitive as we can be against a team also at the moment that are flying. And we know how tough those games are when you're playing against teams with real momentum. It's a brilliant win Saturday against Exeter. They've won a heck of a lot of football matches in the last 6 months, and beating those teams is not easy, and we're the first team to do that this season against them. So we're really pleased with that result, and now we have to see if we can back it up with something at Fratton Park.
And do you take much from the 2 performances at Portsmouth and Charlton last season, both good, obviously contrasting results?
Maybe in some of the players might do, but at the same time we're a different team. We're going to try things a bit differently, and you're playing against, Charlton have got a different manager and are playing a completely different way, and Portsmouth have got the same management team but a fairly different team, so I think they'll be different as well. So I don't think you can make too many comparisons. The only experience you can draw on is how did we cope in atmospheres that had 18, 25,000 people, and that brought the best out in us. So hopefully that can do the same again this week.
That's great, thank you.